All right, guys, so finally we're going to check the main lines of main lines. Okay, so let's go. d4, d5, bishop f4, knight f6, e3, e6, knight d2, c5, c3, bishop to d6, bishop g3, short castle, bishop d3, and finally we studied the move b6. The most played move in this position. Black wants to bring the bishop to b7, which is its natural square. And here there are plenty of options for white. Knight e5 is very natural, short castle, queen e2, but my recommendation is going to be the move e4, which has a lot of venom. It is extremely tricky. First time I faced this move with the black pieces, I actually got completely lost after 4 or 5 moves. Here, our main threat is, of course, e5, so black cannot continue developing with bishop e7 because e5 just wins a piece. So there are 3 alternatives for black here. The move bishop takes g3, the move d takes e4, and the best move, which is not trivial at all, which is bishop to e7. So let's start with bishop takes g3. As I told you guys, this move is never a good idea for black when white hasn't castled yet, right? Because after pawn takes g3, suddenly there are many tricks with the pawn on h7. So let's say that white takes on d4 and then e5 just wins the game. D takes e3, now ef6, cd2, queen takes e2, and now you see all the troubles here. For instance, after queen f6, we have this beautiful finish, bishop h7 check, king h8, and now it looks like there is no discovered check that wins the game. But we have this fantastic move, queen c2, with a double threat. The first one is just to capture the knight on c6, and the second one is the move bishop to g8 check, forcing king g8, and then queen h7 would be mate. So black has to resign. And the other alternative would be to play h6, but after pawn takes e7, nobody can stop queen h6, just winning the game the same way. So bishop g3, not a very good business for black. And now we'll analyze d takes e4, which in my opinion is the most natural move. This is the move that I played with the black pieces against an international master in the Spanish league. But good news for us, it is already a bad move. There are so many tactical shots here. So of course we take with the knight. And now the most natural move is knight takes e4. After bishop takes g3, same problems for black, right? Here we analyze a couple of options, h6 or c takes d4. After h6, we just take the pawn on c5. This is just a pawn up. After c takes d4, sorry, let me do it. C takes d4, we just take on f6, followed by bishop h7. And at the very least, we have bishop e4 back taking the pawn, the knight on c6, sorry. So that's why everybody plays here knight takes e4. Bishop takes e4, only move bishop b7, and now we play d takes e5. And this is basically forcing black to take on c5 with a bishop. Because if black takes on g3, once again, after pawn takes e3, h7 hangs, and we would be a pawn up, this pawn on c5. So that's why bishop takes c5 is the only move. And here, another important move to remember. Queen a4. Wow, this move is, so dangerous for black. We are not only leaving the d1 square for the rook, we are also putting pressure against the knight on c6. But even more beautiful, this queen is gonna come to h4 in some lines. For instance, how to protect the knight on c6. If black plays queen e8, that could be a natural move, right, to the human eye. Now, white just wins the game immediately with, once again, the great gift. Bishop takes h7, beautiful. Now, king takes h7, and then we can bring the queen to h4, and finally, with knight to g5, there's nobody who can stop queen h7, checkmate. So that's why after queen a4, black is forced to go rook c8, and we attack the queen once again with rook d1. And remember, this queen needs to cover the g5 square. Otherwise, once again, the good gift is gonna work with bishop h7, queen h4, and knight to g5. So that's why here, queen e8 is just losing because of bishop h7. So black has 2 options, either to go to e7 or to go to f6. Let's start with the worst move, which is queen to f6. Here we just castle. All right. Black struggles to occupy the d8 square because there is always some bishop h4 ideas. And now, well, let's analyze a couple of options. a6 or rook f to e8. After a6, we can just go b4. We also have a nice majority on the queen side. And this is basically forcing black to go b5 here. But we just retreat the queen to a3. And the point is that the bishop only can go to b6, a7, or e7, but no matter what, this rook is landing on d7, and there is tremendous pressure. In fact, engines are saying that this is 2.5 for white. The other option for black is rook e8, but once again, we just play rook d7, and let's say bishop a8, and now rook d1, and this is just a nightmare for black. Also, rook c7 is very strong here, basically winning the game on the spot as well. So that's why queen f6 is not the best move. The best move is queen e7. Here we proceed with long castle. You can think about the move b4 here, right? But there is one intermediate move that saves the game for black, which is f5. And now let's say after bishop b1, now black can take on b4, and suddenly there is some contemplating this position, and black is even better. So that's why we don't play b4. We are not so greedy. We first complete development with short castle. And now two interesting options for black: to fight for the file with rook d8, or to play f5, you know, stopping all these nasty threats against h7. Let's start with f5. Now we just retreat the bishop to c2, and black plays e5. Black enjoys a nice center, but after rook e1, you know, this center is extremely unstable. For instance, after e4, there is b4, and the bishop cannot go back to d6. So that's why this center is about to collapse, and white is just much better here. And the other option is to fight for the file with rook fd8. Here we just play bishop c2, once again with a very nice position. A lot of attacking chances, idea with queen g4, queen f4, or even queen e4. And don't forget that we can always try to use our majority on the queen side. White is actually better. So d takes e4, the most natural move. I insist on this, but you will see a lot in your games. And that's why I recommend it really, e4, because 90% of players will just capture on e4, which is extremely good news for us. But the best move, you know, I really had to study this position after that game. The best move is bishop e7. Very hard to play if you don't know the position, I have to say. And here we just play e5, gaining some space, forcing this knight to go back either to d7 or the main line, which is knight h5. Let's start with knight d7. And here this is some sort of French setup where the bishop on c8 is just a terrible bishop. So that's why here we are better after the move h4. Once again, getting ready for the Greek gift. All right? So black has to stop this bishop h7 ideas, followed by knight g5 and then queen h5 check, just winning the game. So there are basically two ways: h6 or f6. If black goes f6, we have this fantastic finish. Another beautiful line that I found while creating this course. Boom! Knight to g5. Boom! Everything collapses now. Well, black is forced to take g5, right? And then, boom! Second sacrifice. Black is forced to take. Boom! Opening the h file. King g8. And now you're not gonna believe the next move. Boom! Rook h8. We sacrifice two pieces and a rook. Check. And g6. And nobody can stop queen a7. Followed by queen h8. Checkmate. Beautiful, right? So f6 not working. Maybe h6 is a better try. But here we can just proceed with queen e2. What's the idea behind queen e2? Well, after c takes d4, we want to take with the knight, protecting the e5 square. Bishop b7, and now we can just play knight b3, and then play positionally. Positionally, but also with a lot of nasty threats. For instance, bishop c2, followed by queen d3 is an idea. We can always proceed with short castle in certain positions. Even long castle and then continue attacking. This is much more comfortable for white. All right, guys? So that's why knight d7 is not considered to be a good move. Instead, the best move is knight to h5. Makes a lot of sense because black is actually chasing our strong piece, our g3 bishop, our bishop pair. Okay? And here, my recommendation is the aggressive move, knight to g5. Don't worry, this knight is also hanging. So black has three possibilities here. Taking on g3, playing g6, protecting it, or just accepting the knight on g5. Let's start with knight takes g3. This is a losing move, and of course, it's not hard to imagine. Now we take on h7, check intermediate move, king h8, and now this is a very important move. Once again, you want to train your chess skills, I recommend you to pause the video and then try to find the solution here. Because probably the most natural move is pawn takes. But the point is that after bishop takes c5, there's no easy way to finish the game. In fact, the position is now equal. Black has always this resource of covering the king with bishop h6 if you bring the queen. So that's why this is not the move. The move is knight takes f7 check. You are forced to take the knight, and now you take on g3. The point is, you are now threatening to play bishop g6. So if you play g5, queen h5 is just winning. If you go bishop g5, now check, followed by queen h5 with a double attack. Mate on h8 and grabbing the rook. So we get all the material back. Let's say rook f2, king e1, king f8, and now you can actually checkmate in the following way. So in this position on move number 11, knight g3 is losing. Remember, boom, boom, boom. So another choice for black is g6, which is also a dubious move because of knight takes h7, right? Then two options for black, taking on g3 or taking on h7. If knight takes e3, pawn takes, and we have protected our knight, we have a winning attack here. So black is forced to take on h7, takes on h5, using the pin here along this diagonal, and the king has to go back, and basically, let's say king g7, at the very least, we can just go back to g4 and keep an extra pawn in this position. And finally, let's go for the main line, and the best line for black. Bishop takes c5, queen takes h5, threatening checkmate on h7. These positions are very crazy and complicated, so I recommend you to play around with them at home, right? Maybe with a friend, maybe with the engine, right? Maybe chess.com, right? Well, in your favorite platform, Lichess. Try to play some training games with these positions because it's not that easy to understand, right? For both sides, of course. And the fun part for us is that we're the ones attacking the king. So here, black has three alternatives to stop the mate. h6, g6, or bishop takes d2. Let's start with bishop takes d2, which looks good for black, right? Because, you know, our king is now in the center, but black paid a very high price. Because now, you know, black doesn't have the dark square bishop. You play h6, then bishop h4 followed by bishop f6 is extremely dangerous for black. If you play g6, queen h6, and in fact this position is won for white. The threat is bishop h4, bishop f6. Very simple chess. Let's say c takes d4, bishop h4, f6, now boomba, boomba, boomba. And at the very least, you will have some ideas with rook c1, rook c3, and also bishop f6 getting some material back. And if you play, let's say, on move number 14, f5, once again, you can play bishop h4, bishop f6, and the plan is simple. Simple and effective. h4, h5, open the h file and mate. After pawn takes e4, you can also take on d4. You know, the king is actually very safe here. Rook is coming to c1 as well. And look at this dark squares. You know, they're extremely weak on the king side. Beautiful chess. So bishop d2, once again, is considered to be a mistake. Now, two remaining options, h6 or g6. After h6, we play simple chess with knight to f3, protecting and attacking at the same time. Let's say c takes d4, Knight takes d4. Usually we don't want to take with the pawn because that allows knight b4, bishop a6, and suddenly this bishop, you know, that was having nightmares, now suddenly it's happy in the party, right? So that's why we take with the knight and we keep this bishop in a passive situation. And we're the ones with a very easy position to play. For instance, the plan is just to go h4, bishop f4. Suddenly some rook lifts are possible via h3 and g3. Also some sacrifices on h6. And, you know, black is with a lot of trouble here. And, sorry, h6, knight f3, right. So the last move to cover is g6. Attacking our queen. And of course, we have to go back. So we go back to e2. Here, really, the only decent try for black is to capture the pawn. And we have sacrificed the pawn, but we're going to have a lot of initiative on the king side, as you can imagine. So we go h4. And once again, three options for black. Going back to h6, to e7, or just capturing the pawn, capturing the knight, sorry, on d2. Let's first analyze bishop h6. And now we keep pushing. Of course, that we want to trade on g6 and then capture this guy on h6. So black has two ways to deal with it. The first one is to retreat the bishop to g7. You guys know that the fianchetto bishop is a fantastic defensive piece, and it's very easy. It's very hard to mate our opponent's king when it has a fianchetto bishop protecting it, right? And the other option is to close the position with g5. After bishop g7, we just take on d4, knight takes d4, and queen g4, attacking the knight and putting tremendous pressure here on g6. Knight f5 is the best move, and here knight f3. And really, the position is extremely dangerous for black, right? We are a pawn down in the position, but we have so many attacking ideas, right? Like bishop f4, opening the file, like some knight g5 ideas. For instance, after knight g3, we can just take on g3. And once again, we're going to bring a knight to g5. For instance, bishop b7, takes. And after knight g5, we're going to support the center with f4. The queen is landing on h4. There are so many tactical shots here that black will struggle to survive in this position. And the other option, on move number 15, is to close the files with the move g5. But of course, this bishop is now in a really bad situation. And I really like the following maneuver to get an advantage. We play knight f3. And the plan is to bring this knight to g4. Not only attacking h6, not only supporting an eventual h6 from our side, but also keeping an eye on the f6 square, right? So let's say dc3, bc3, bishop d7, and knight h2. Well, now let's analyze three options. King g7, bishop g7, and f5. After king g7, our knight is fantastically placed on g4, and look at this coordination of pieces, you know. Black's position is about to collapse. Short castle, we can even think about breaking with f4 at some point. Ideas like bishop c2, queen d3, black is lost. Bishop g7, and here h6. Great move. Of course, if black takes on h6, this is going to be suicidal. You know, h7 is hanging, and the bishop has to go to h8, and the knight will arrive anyway to g4 with a great position. And finally, f5, stopping knight g4. Of course, here we take on f6. Our knight is gonna land on g4 after short castle, and you know the engine is saying +1 more or less for white. But of course, in practice, this is just extremely hard for black to defend. c4 is coming, even to open more diagonals for our bishop. Then knight on g4 stopping e5. A rook can come to e1, the other rook to c1, or even the rook from a1 to e1. Very, very tough to defend, right? So bishop h6, not really the best move. Now we analyze on move number 14, bishop takes d2. And as you guys know, giving up this dark square bishop, you don't want to do it, really. I mean, black's only a pawn up in this position. Look at all these weaknesses along the dark squares, right? So it's not a very good business. Very hard to play with the black, with the black pieces. Queen takes d2, and now two options, taking on c3 or playing f5. After d takes c3, naturally we take, let's say f6, we can play h5, and after g5, take on f6, and short castle. And once again, the king is extremely naked over there, rook e1 coming, c4 coming, bad bishop on c8, you know, hard to survive in practice. And move number 15, black can also play f5, after which we just take on d4. And after knight d4, we can just play bishop f4. And, you know, it's a similar situation to the ones that we just saw like some minutes before. And bad bishop, a6 is well controlled, weaknesses along the dark squares. A possible plan could be bishop g5, bishop f6, followed by h5. You know, if we manage to open, the h file, the game is completely over. So really, bishop d2, you don't want to do that. The best move is bishop e7. You know, it's sad, it's the most passive move, but it is what it is. It is what you have to do here with the black pieces. And here, we keep attacking like crazy after h5, right? So black has to take on c3, b takes c3, and there are two options here for black. The best move is d4. It's not an easy move to make because you actually, you know, give control of the e4 square to the white side. And the other option is to go king to g7. After d4, you just take on g6, pawn takes e6, and knight to e4. As I told you guys, you know, look at these two squares. They're so tasty. King g7, and here, you know, a very crazy move that it was a computer. It is a computerish line. I mean, I would have never imagined that move, you know, long castle here. You can agree with me, like, you have to be, I don't know, the bravest guy in the world to go long castle. But when you start thinking about this move, you realize that it's good, man. You connect the rooks, the king is gonna be flexy and sexy on b1. So why not? The rook looking with x-rays to the queen on d8. Why not, right? Bishop b7 and queen to g4. You can play around at home with the computer, but black's much worse. All right, knight d6 coming in this position. Don't forget about the h file. So it's a good position for white. And finally, on move number 16, we analyze king g7, after which we just play rook d1, and we end up here our analysis. There are many plans here to improve your position. Bringing the knight to f3, right? Bringing a bishop to b1, maybe the queen to d3, maybe the bishop to f4, right? To keep an eye on the h6 square. You know, the engine are saying that this is 0.4, 0.5 for white, and we're pawn down. So imagine how dangerous it is to play with the black pieces. See you in the next one.
Access ChessEnigma's free sample lessons. Enjoy videos, interactive exercises, and a digital board to practice anywhere on any device. Sign up for free and start improving your chess from home today.